Oh, internet. Internet wanted me to watch this, and so I did, and... Alright, internet, we'll talk about this. Tiger King. So Tiger King is a miniseries on Netflix, and I didn't know anything about this. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know the story. I know a lot of people, I actually know a few people, maybe a couple people. Anyhow, they knew the story. They were like, oh yeah, I totally knew the story because it's on a podcast I listened to. I was not so educated on the subject, so I went into this not even knowing what it was. All I knew was that there were a lot of memes over the weekend. This show got memed the fuck out. It's a documentary miniseries following the subculture, if not shady world of exotic animal owners and zoos that own these tigers and breeding and selling of tigers. And it being this subculture, this little pocket of people, everyone knows everybody, but when they hook you in with this dude, you can't help but just chuckle, you know? What was his name? Magic Mike or something like that. Hold on. Joe Exotic. That's it. And you know, that's totally his name. One look and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally his name, isn't it? Yeah, I imagine it would be. Joe Exotic owns this zoo, a lot of tigers. He's a really eccentric person. He's like if Joe Dirt and Yosemite Sam had a kid with Siegfried and Roy. Yeah. And yeah, the tagline of the show, it just says it all. Murder, mayhem, and madness. It's quite a story. Actually, this dude was filming a documentary with Joe Exotic. He's at the very beginning of this series, and he was like, you gotta go to the beginning. It's a weird fucking story. No one could phrase it better. It is a weird fucking story. It's a story that it's an interesting insight into this world that I didn't know I would be so interested in peeking into, but it's also interesting among the people in this world. For a while in here, it concentrates on a feud between Joe Exotic and this animal rights activist. And she's like, well, I'm helping the animals, and he's hurting animals, and Joe Exotic's like, I love the tigers, they have a good life here. It's just, so you have two sides of this feud. In the end, they're both doing the same shit. They're profiting off of the exotic animals they have for money. That's what they're doing. And it doesn't stop there among all the other characters in here. It's like, it's the hypocrisy, the finger pointing, the self-righteousness among these adult children. And really, the show is a cautionary tale of letting those feuds and escalation get out of control, and do not let that happen. And I think the reason myself and a lot of other people couldn't take our eyes off of this thing is because we see it all the time. You see it on Twitter. It's like, oh, this person tweeted at me, so I'll make a YouTube video about that tweet, and that person makes a YouTube video about the YouTube video. I mean, I see this shit on YouTube all the time. Maybe the logistics are different. It's not people who own zoos. Maybe they're not doing super shady things like what's going on in this show. I suppose it's because that's human nature, you know? It is a subculture. Anytime there's a subculture, you have pockets and cliques. Anytime you have cliques, you now have tribes. Anytime you have tribes, you have tribal warfare. That's just what people do. We drive it there. So I see this as a cautionary tale. It's like, don't let it get here, you know? Don't let it get out of control. At a point, you look around and you're like, no one in this show is a role model. No one is. Like, everyone's this shady character to varying degrees, but really, no one's at that point where you're like, I respect you. Well, none of the owners anyway. Some of the people, you know, like some of the bystanders, maybe they were employees, maybe they were interns, maybe they were cult followers of some sort. It's weird, but it's reality. They're the ones who are like, all right, you're human, but these other idiots who are the main ones who run these parks and they just feel like the lords of their universe. Reality slipped these folks a while ago. They're these weird, hypocritical, narcissistic egomaniacs who think they're the center of the fucking universe. Granted, I'm on this side of it, you know, so I gotta remember they're making entertainment, so they're gonna show us what they need to show us to make good entertainment. So I don't know if they're just showing the worst parts of the people in here, but everyone in the show just, every park owner, every tiger owner, everyone involved in the industry firsthand just comes across as catty. No pun intended, it's the word. If not that, just general business scumbag. Which brings me to my favorite meme I found about this show ever, and I'm gonna put it right there because that is the most accurate description. It's too good. Whoever made that. Ugh. Yeah. You win the internet for this month. There have been a lot of people on the internet this month. A lot of people with a lot of time, so that's saying something. When it started ramping up in the show, when it was really getting heavy, I was like, all right, what's the angle this show's gonna pull and who's gonna be the hero because of editing? But really, the show never says, yeah, this was the good guy and that's the bad guy. It's bad decisions made by egomaniacs accompanied by other egomaniacs who helped along the bad decisions and made other bad decisions. Be careful who you go into business with. That's another lesson from here. You know, there's actually a thing that happens in here. It can't be underplayed. It's legit tragedy that strikes. And you're like, oh my God. And I don't want to underplay it, and I don't want to not mention it because it's easy for, the really eccentric people that are a part of this culture. It kind of eclipses that. But it was a really sad and tragic thing that happened, and it didn't need to happen. I just didn't want to not mention that. You know, interestingly enough, I want to keep this one spoiler free, but this is like light spoiler. Because, I mean, it doesn't really reach any conclusion, but there's this arc in here. It's quite a tangled web. But on one of them, it's like, oh, this really rich guy disappeared. He just disappeared. He's pronounced dead. He's gone. But there's no real, it's like they investigate it and they're like, all right, well, we kind of hit a brick wall. Let's go back to the other thing. I would have wanted some resolution with that, but I mean, you can't make resolution up. If there's no resolution, there's no resolution. But it definitely was one of those things where I was like, what happened there? That timing's very suspect. This was one of those stories where if this was a fictional story and it was a series or a movie and I was talking about it on YouTube, I would be like, well, they should have cut a couple of storylines and focused it up. The story's kind of all over the place, but it's reality. Truth is stranger than fiction. It's a story that starts out in one area of people who own tigers and the culture therein. And it goes to crazier avenues among all these people who they're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds. And in the end, you can tell the story's not done at all. There's more to tell, absolutely. All I know is it is quite the bus fire that you can't take your eyes off of. Whether you see it for the subculture it starts out on, or you see it as the cautionary tale of internet beef. By the end, it's definitely worth a watch. For the first 2 episodes, I was like, what the fuck? What did the internet get me into? Folks, you suggested this weird shit. Actually, a couple people I knew did too. It felt like reality TV. But about halfway through, when shit starts to really get shady and weird, it locks you in. You're like, okay, this isn't just some eccentric guy who owns tigers and whoop-de-doo. Interestingly enough, I've seen better documentaries out there, but not documentaries that are so memeable. You have someone like that, well, that shit goes viral. So here we are. I've heard about Tiger King. So during social distancing, self-isolation, self-quarantine, whatever you want to call it, there you go. You got yourself a mini-series. If you want to lock in and wonder why, because I said it's there. All right, so Tiger King, it's on Netflix. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or what's another documentary that you would suggest for me? I make no promises, but always taking orders. Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.